Good afternoon, everybody. So let's begin with this today. So what we're going to talk about today is the second in a three-part series here of webinars, really talking about standards-based assessment, some of the reasons for doing it and what we believe. Today what we're taking a look at is some of the really tough questions that come along with this. So what I want to begin with is kind of like a recap, right? Last week we did what is standards-based assessment. Really just an outline of here's what it is and here's what we're looking to do with it. This week we're going to take a look at some of the tough questions. And then next week, and it's kind of hard to pull this out from all the other ones, but next week's going to be very specific on how to implement some of the things that we're talking about. Now remember that our goal is to have marks in the progress reports, assignments, whatever you're putting marks on, to be accurate indicators of where a student's knowledge is at a specific point in time. That's really what we covered last week. This week, some of the questions that we ended up with at the end of last week. So let's take a look at a few things here. So what I want to do, well, first here, this guy here, his name is Darren Taylor. I think it was last summer, he jumped from about 36 feet up in the air into 12 inches of water. Why am I showing you this? What I want to point out before we begin, before we do anything else, is this really is not a deep dive into these subjects. This is really kind of just a shallow dive. We're not covering them in as much depth as they most likely need. There are whole college classes out there where you meet like 3 hours a night for a whole semester that cover just parts of these. Books have been written about homework. If you look on any bookshelf in any school, you'll see a bajillion books about homework. This is really meant to be a shallow dive, hopefully something to get your mind going, hopefully get you saying, you know what, maybe I can try this one thing this one day. So that's really the purpose of today. So what are we doing today? Other than that, well, we do have some really tough questions, and not having clear answers sometimes prevents us from moving forward. The other idea is change. I really don't think people are that afraid of change. I think people are afraid of the unknown. You've been teaching, for most of you here have been teaching a long time. You know what to do. You know how, what works for you. And when you come along and say, we need to change something, that's that unknown part. So that's what I mean by tough questions. We've talked about grades being inaccurate, but there's a bigger question also. Do the grades you give, no matter what you call them, do they encourage students to learn more? I'm not saying try harder. I'm saying learn more. So think about that today as we go through some of these things. So one of the first things we're going to talk about, of the three things, is going to be homework. Do you count it? Do you not count it? Do you grade it? Do you not grade it? Do you give it or do you not give it? So really taking a look at homework and how that plays out into things. Another one, the redos and retakes. How can you do it without driving yourself crazy? Is it fair to let a student try again? Does it teach responsibility? That's one thing that people often look at, and they say, I want the kids to be responsible. And then the last one that we're going to talk about today is, does everything needed to be counted in a grade book and used to determine a final grade? Now, let me be very clear, because this is one spot where I lose people. Should everything be assessed? Yes. But the question actually is, should everything count toward a final grade? So those are really, hopefully, the three things we're going to cover today. So let's begin with this. Let's get this off the table right now. We're going to get this argument. Whenever I do this, whenever I give a presentation even similar to this, no matter what I do, I always get the comment that in real life, it does not work this way. Actually, my argument is exactly the opposite. In real life, it does work this way. I've given these presentations, I think probably in the last 5 or 6 years, I think I've probably given at least 100 of these. And every single time, I ask people to come up with examples where real life doesn't work this way. It never happens. People don't come up with those. They come up with examples, but it's not working the way they're saying. For example, when I talk about late work, people always bring up taxes. That's like the one example they always use. I can't pay my taxes late. Sure you can. You can pay your taxes late. You can file an extension. Okay, I get that. But let's say I decide not to pay my taxes. Okay, what does the IRS do in that point? If you say, I'm not going to pay my taxes, just like a student not turning in an assignment, does the IRS say, okay, You don't have to pay anything or give a zero, if we're using teacher talk, and then we're going to move on. No, the IRS makes you pay them, makes you pay your taxes. You can pay them late. You can pay them as late as you want, but you are going to have some sort of penalty. They don't just say, okay, whatever, it's your choice, and move on. They make you pay them, and there's a punishment. So in real life, yes, you can pay taxes late. Or, another example, and I think this one is actually on some sort of talking points or something, because I get it every single time. The question is always, do you want to be on an airplane the first time a pilot lands? Oh, heck no. No, I don't. No, but there is a difference. There is a huge difference. Pilots spend thousands of hours in a flight simulator, just like what you see on the screen there, before they even touch a real aircraft. They practice their skills over and over and over. They don't have to be perfect the first time, but they do have the opportunity to practice in a situation where they can fail. It's risk-free, and if they're not successful, they have the opportunity to try again. It's only after that pilots in training can demonstrate that they know how to do it that they begin to work with a real plane. Pilots, they have the opportunity to redo. They never test until they know how to do it. So again, this is real life. We have a very similar example here with doctors. People look at medical professions and say, oh, if I'm a doctor and I don't do something right, I'm going to get fired. Well, of course you are. But as you're learning, you practice on things such as dummies. Again, the whole idea is it's risk-free. Doctors aren't going to hurt that dummy there. It'd be kind of hard to hurt that. But they have the opportunity to make mistakes. And it's not, they have the opportunity to learn from them. And they don't move on to working with people until they are fully competent in practice. So yes, again, and I want to make this point, this is real life. And then one final one, programming. If you've ever programmed anything, if you've ever written code, thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of code, you'll have a mistake somewhere. You'll have a mistake. Does it mean you're a bad programmer? No, you probably just mistyped something or something like that. But your program isn't judged on your first try. The program is judged on what goes out. So let's not make the mistake of saying this is not how things are done in real life. It really is. And these are just a couple examples. These are the most common examples, the ones I hear all the time. You may have come up with one. It's popping around in your head. You're like, I'm going to get them with this. So let me do the general rule of thumb with this. Please do not mistake a person who has gone through years and years of training with a student who is in the process of learning. That's the big difference. Right now, students are in the process of learning. So that example with a pilot, do you want to be on the plane the first time he lands? We didn't just throw an airplane pilot into a plane and said, go fly a plane, show me what you know. The pilot had an opportunity to practice and to get good. Are we giving students the exact same opportunity? So don't mistakenly compare an adult with years of training with a student who is still in the process of learning. To treat these two the same really it's unfair. It's unfair to them. So let's get that argument off the table and begin talking about a couple of specific things. So one of the first things we're going to talk about is homework. We'll begin with that, and we'll begin by addressing some misconceptions that popped up here. Now, first, there is no diocesan policy that says you can't give out homework. Nothing like that exists. You can plow through that policy book. You're never going to find it, or that it should not be graded. You're not going to find that in our policy book either. Your school may have adopted something different. The school rules, but not from our office here. So make sure we got that clear. We do suggest that homework is not graded, and this is going to be kind of tricky here. We do suggest it, but we do not mandate it. There's a couple reasons why we suggest it, and it isn't a blanket statement for everything. You're going to hear that a couple times today. It's not, no assignment should ever be graded, but there's reasons why we suggest this. Well, first and most importantly, homework should be practice. We should work on it. It should be practice to hone their skills. It should be to get better. Another reason, we're kind of beating around the bush with this last week, but we're never really sure who does the homework, right? We don't know if the parents do it, the kid does it, brother does it, they copy it off of somebody on the bus. So many different examples there. As they visit schools, a perfect example of this is that science fair projects are often done completely in school. History fair, whatever type of fair you may have, but most often it's science fair. Now, why is that? The reason teachers do this is they know parents complete a large portion of the science fair project. They know that. They know parents help out a lot with that. And the science teacher wants to know basically what does a student know? So they eliminate parents doing the work for them. So what makes this with science fair a really good idea and different than any other homework assignment? Are we not? We're willing to go to different lengths for science fair. We're willing to say, you know, we're going to make sure there's no parental involvement in doing the work, but we don't do it for typical homework. And then another question I often get, talking about, you know, what the standards-based assessment system and dealing with this picture here, is homework a good thing or a bad thing? Homework a good thing or a bad thing? Well, really, the answer is neither. It's not a blanket, all homework is good. It's not a blanket, all homework is bad. What really matters is how it's used. And there are some, you know, I'll tell you the truth, there are some really, really good homework assignments out there where students go in and go home and do some work and learn stuff and practice and you know, hone their skills. So it's not a good thing or a bad thing, just a blanket statement. So think about a couple of homework assignments that you may hear. Check any homework page. You can go to your school. You can check any grade. You can go to, you know, another school down the street. You can go to a school in a different country. I don't know. And you're going to see things like this for student homework. Write your spelling words 10 times each. Well, 10's a little excessive, but, you know, we'll go with that. Or define these 15 vocabulary words from the glossary of your science book. Or do the math problems on page 27. That's dividing fractions. Now, these types of assignments are very typical, but our question is going to be, do they reinforce learning? Remember, we talked about that earlier. That's another one of our goals here, is to encourage learning. So do these types of assignments reinforce learning, or do they just focus on rote learning? Or do they go on to deeper understandings? Now, there are several things that go into quality homework, and I've got a list of about 5 or 6, and I'm only going to focus on one today to make my point here. The one I'm going to focus on is that homework has a purpose. Why are we giving homework? And there must be a very good reason for it. You know, one of the biggest buzzwords right now in education is the phrase clear learning targets. You know, where kids have to know where they're going in order to get there, right? So do we do that with homework? Do we take a look at what we're expecting the kids to do and make sure our homework matches up with that? So we can check that and see if it matches the goal. So let's go back to the one of the original assignments. I think I said, you know, write the spelling words 10 times each. Now, here's where it can be good or bad. If your goal is only to have the students memorize the list of spelling words, that's not a terrible assignment. It's incredibly boring. I wouldn't want to do it. But it's not a terrible assignment. But how many of us have a goal that we're going to teach kids how to spell 10 words? Not many. Usually the goal is we're going to teach kids how to spell words with the vowels IE together, you know, like believe, those type of words. Does that repeating the spelling words over and over help students learn the rule? Or how about find the vocabulary definitions, copy them on the back of the science book? Very honestly, that's not a very high-level task. When you just copy something out of the back of a book, the back of a glossary, all students are doing is copying. So there's no thinking that goes into that. Students really do learn by seeing and using words in context. So if you need to do vocabulary, how about something along these lines, like show that you know the meaning by using them in a sentence? That's a very different type of assignment. Or tell me a story using some of these. Or, you know, choose 3 sentences. So you have 3 sentences. Pick the one that uses the word correctly. But here's another way you could do it, and this is kind of a unique way. I haven't seen this one yet, but don't give the vocabulary before the unit. And I know that kind of goes against some of the things you're thinking when you give that type of assignment, to hold off, you know, because you want them to know it before they learn about it. But actually do the unit first. For example, if the assignment's something, if it's building a rocket and launching it, imagine if the kids do the rocket, they launch it up into the sky and they do all these different things, and then you introduce things such as acceleration or momentum to them. Before, acceleration and momentum were just words in the back of the book. After this, after they do some sort of experiment, acceleration and momentum, they have something to think about it with that. So in reality, when we're talking about homework, it's not that it's all good. It's not that it's all bad. But what it really is how it's perceived and used in the classroom that makes it good or bad. So that's a little diatribe, just so we know where we're going here. A little part about homework. Now we're going to talk a little bit about redos and how to do those without driving yourself absolutely crazy and some of the ideas behind there. This picture actually came to me. The idea for using this actually popped up Sunday morning when I was at Mass. The scripture reading this Sunday morning at Mass was a parable of the workers in the vineyard. And for those of you that might not know it, the parable of the workers in the vineyard, basically a landowner goes to the marketplace and gets a bunch of workers for the vineyard. Then he goes, a couple hours later, like at noon, and gets more workers, and then goes a little bit later in the evening, goes to get more workers. At the end of the day, all of the workers were paid the exact same amount, whether they worked there for an hour or all day. I thought about that. Wow, this parable, this scripture reading, I'm sitting there in Mass, and I'm like, this is exactly like giving students opportunities to retake or redo an assessment. It doesn't matter how long it takes them to master something. If they get it on the first try, that's great. If it takes them 2, 3 tries, that's great also. If it takes them 5 tries, does that person who took 5 tries deserve a lesser grade? Now remember, our goal is to make our grades accurate indicators of what a student knows. Do they deserve a lesser grade than the person who only took 1 try? They know the same material. It just took them a little bit longer to get it. So that's one piece with this, and I thought of that, and then I also thought of this. A lot of times when I talk about giving redos, and then people say, "Do we redo everything?" Some of you may recognize this picture. That's from last year, the Blue Jackets in the playoffs, right? So they're in the playoffs, right? And they're doing well, but they end up losing. Do they get a redo? Do they get to do it over again? Of course not. Of course not, they don't. But here's the difference here. These are professional. At this level, they do not get a redo. They're not learning how to play hockey at this point. They are proficient, to use the term, proficient hockey players. So in this case, no, they're proficient. They don't get the redo. So in thinking of sports also, I think of running. I personally enjoy running. I do that for some fun stuff. I was actually halfway decent until last September when I broke my ankle. I was off my foot for 3 months and then limited weight for another 3 months. And then I ran a 5K in late May. My time was about 14 minutes per mile. Pretty bad. The average person walks a 5K in about 20 minutes. It was really bad. About a week or 2 ago, I did another one, and it was under 30 minutes. So do we average together my 2 times to say, here's what I can run in a 5K? No, we don't. My best time is what really counts. So point that out. So do redos happen all the time? No, they don't. But when we take a look at this, we'll take a look at what's up on your wall. If you're in your classroom right now, go around and take a look and see what's there. You probably have something up that encourages students to try if they do not meet their goal, right? I'm hoping. I see this all the time. And there are so many different ones out there. I wish I could have gotten them all. But you probably have something like this out there. And you put it up there. But does your grading policy support what you're saying? Does it show that you are willing to accept a student's not doing well and have them try and try again? So just wanted to kind of point that out there. You probably have something just like this. So how do you do it? How do you do this without going absolutely totally crazy? And how do you make it fair? Redos, like I said, is it completely fair? I got a couple suggestions. See, this is where I told you earlier on where it's kind of hard to just kind of say this but not give you tips. My number one suggestion, and I hope people do this, do not give students the opportunity to redo an assessment without any other conditions. What you really need to do is make it harder for them to redo it than to get it right on the first try. The number one complaint is that students take advantage of the fact that you're willing to let them take the test again or any other assignment. That's the number one complaint. My question is always, why do you let that happen? Why do you let them do that? One of the things I've done, and I've done a couple of these, but one is basically ask the student, keep the two assignments. Submit the new one with the original one. And then the student writes a brief letter to me. He compares basically the differences between the two and what did the student learn. Again, I'm letting them redo it, but I'm not making it easy for them. And you can always give a different version of the assessment. If you're worried that kids will just memorize a pattern or a set of answers, don't be afraid to read and to change something up on them. My big one is to always announce that redos are at your discretion. That way they can't take it for granted. Another one of my favorite ones that work quite often for me is that what I did was basically have a student explain why they didn't do well on the assignment they want to redo. In writing, not to me. And then they had to explain what they were going to do to get a better grade the next time. And then they had to outline a plan. See, again, I'm making it more work than it would be to do it on the first try. But the last step was always to get the parents' permission to redo. Almost all the time, the parents said yes. Sometimes the parents said no, and I was okay with that. I would let them say no, and it's because sometimes you need to fail to do a little bit better. You need to have that. So just a couple of ideas, a couple of ways to do it. I always say, if you want to be sane, you can't accept redos all year long, right? You can't accept the late work. You can't do that all year long. As you're coming to the end of a quarter or a marking period or however you do it, it's perfectly fine to stop. This is for your own sanity. To stop accepting those, a week or maybe a week and a half ahead of time. You know what? Because it's okay to be, you're pushing them, but you have work you have to get done, and stop them at the end of the quarter, at the marking period, because you need to get it done. So these are just a couple of ways to make that work for you. A couple of other ones. I'm sure that this always brings up a bunch of questions, so I want to make a point about that. And feel free to ask questions if you need to. I've got a couple here that I'm going to hit later on. So we got homework, we got this, and we got well, the big one. It's Creeper. So the big one is always, how do I get kids to do the work if they're not getting graded on it? My argument is that kids want to learn, that they are going to learn regardless of a letter grade. And we've talked a little bit about that last week, but just a couple more examples. Minecraft is huge. It's still huge. It's been huge for like 3 years now. And kids build these amazing, amazing things on Minecraft. They do this, and they don't get letter grades for this. They actually don't get much. I was amazed by this. Or the next one here, this is that rainbow loom thing. I don't know if this has died down yet or not, but over the summer I saw girls making all sorts of rainbow loom things and having rainbow loom sales and all the, look, he's even got a rainbow loom tie. Students will learn at, basically, they don't need the letter grades to do it. And adults, same thing. Why do we play games? We work on this. We do this. The motivation is there. The motivation should be the learning and not, the letter grade. And, in case you like to knit, I just found that picture funny. Or some people do these things all the time. We learn constantly. it is not a matter of grades and getting it. It's a matter of personal satisfaction. Learning, sometimes when you learn, it doesn't work out quite as well as you would like. So these are, really taking a look at some of the main questions here, and hopefully dispelling some of the myths, some of the ideas. When you take a look at this, please don't think, and I know this comes up there, that the idea of not recording everything for a grade or giving the students the opportunity to redo something or a smaller amount of homework is an easier class than one that does all the other things. Personally, my experience is that it's harder. In a class where everything's recorded, in a class where students cannot redo something, in a class where homework is given, and if students don't do it, oh well, not my problem, right? I mean, we've thought that. Yes, it's frustrating, don't get me wrong, but in those types of classes, if a student doesn't learn something, we just move on. But when we offer students or force students to complete the homework that they did not turn in, when we force them to do a redo if they did not do well on an assignment, what we're actually doing is forcing them to learn. And like this one thing I keep harping on is how many of us have mission statements out there that say either lifelong learner, independent learner, love of learning. We've got all of these different things. And instead what we're doing is we're not teaching kids to learn. We're teaching them to comply with our rules. So our goal is to teach them to learn. So I'll show you a couple of these. I just thought that was funny also. You don't have to raise your hand, but you can type it in. I do have a question here. So let me read that over real quick. Okay, so the question, I don't think you guys can see this. So the question is, what about instances, let's say, for example, math, where students may demonstrate mastery of a concept, but even still there are students who have varying degrees of depth in their understanding. Like the players on a basketball team, all the players meet the standards. Well, that's a wonderful way to put it. Thank you, Charlotte. But sorry, let me get back. Like on a basketball team, all the players have met the standards, but have varied skills, although they meet the standard of playing basketball. I think that's it. That's an excellent question. Excellent. So let's talk about that a little bit, and if any others pop up, that's great. But if they have met the standard, very honestly, they've met the standard. Some may do better than others. Basketball, I can do a bounce pass. I can do like the chest pass type thing, but that overhand pass to throw it real far, I can't do that. I can throw it goes flying away. So have they met the standard? What criteria have you put aside for them to meet the standard? And depending on what it is, it's usually varied. Going back to a spelling test, you probably want students to get a perfect paper just to meet the standard, and that's fine. If all students have met it, great. Math might be a little bit different. Can they explain it? Can they do it? Can they do it on their own? Regardless of the level of meeting the standard, those students have met the standard. It kind of goes a little bit against what we think about as an American society, right? We reward hard work. We reward people being better than others. But the goal is not to rank students. It's not to see who is better than whom. It is to make sure that all students learn. So my advice there is that they have all met the standard. Some of them may have exceeded the standard. But if you're meeting it at a high level, it's the same as meeting it at a middle level. And the question comes up, what about low level? And I'm not sure there's a low level of meeting the standard. In the early days of the standards-based assessment, many people went to the 95, and this is not the way it should be done, period. Don't think I'm saying this is right. Okay, well, if meeting the standard is a passing grade, therefore every letter grade, every percentage from a B down to a D should be a meeting the standard. My question for you, technically, yes, I know every handbook has D as a passing score, but is a D really passing? There's a joke out there that D is basically, you failed, but I don't want you in my class anymore. Or if it's a good kid, it's that you failed and you tried real hard, and so I don't want you to feel bad. So let's do that. So another question here. All right, in real life, there's a penalty for paying taxes late in the classroom. Can there be a penalty for turning in work late? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, let me finish. Last week you said that we no longer value timeliness and effort. That's actually not exactly correct. Timeliness and effort should not be a part of the academic report card. Timeliness and effort is very important. We need to have that. So that's not correct. We do value timeliness. We do value effort, but the academic report card should be what a student can do. Okay, so the penalty for turning in work late. Yeah, I'm all for penalties. If you're letting students turn in work late just willy-nilly, okay, you didn't turn in today, just get it to me tomorrow. You are making your life really hard, especially in May, because everybody, at the end of the year, there should be penalties. My favorite was always to basically make the students do it. I would make them do it after school, during school, recess, lunch. That's when I would make them do it. They sometimes get a little bit difficult. Sometimes I had to sit there with the kid in the classroom across from me and make them do it. And I know that's hard, but that was their punishment, to do it. And it wasn't that they got away with it. They had to do it. Because what does it tell a kid if they don't turn in an assignment? You say, okay, don't turn it in. It really gives them the idea that the assignment is not important, and it gives them that it's not important enough to do. So that's one of those things. So please, 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 do not let them get away with it without some sort of punishment, just not an academic punishment. Okay. Can't take away recess and lunch. Oh, I'm sorry about that then. So maybe that might be a place to think about another way that you can get them. Yeah, and that recess is tough, because I know some of the worst kids in my class, I wanted to take away the recess, but they needed that recess as something to get them moving and make them feel better about themselves. So that might be something where we can think about a different way to get them to do it. But really the punishment should be doing the work. If that makes that sounds terrible, I came out wrong, but the punishment we should not let them get away with not doing the work. So I'm going to think about that and try to figure out a way to help you out. I don't know if I'll have the answer today. All right, any other questions, thoughts, concerns? Because it's been, oh my gosh, it's been over a half hour. All right, so if you have any questions, you can email me. Again, remember, it's Arlog, not the webinars at CD Education one. And the question about CEUs, yes, I will get that out to you. This is eligible for 0.3 CEUs, which will cost you $10 if you do all three of them. If you do one, it's 0.1. If you do 2, 0.2, you get the picture. But my advice to you is wait till the very end, till we have all three of these done, if you're doing all three, because if you mail them in together, 0.3 CEUs is $10. If you mail all three in separately, it will be $10 for each one, so you'll be paying $30. So mail them all in together, save yourself some money, and don't tell anyone I told you that. And so I'll get that to you. I'll email that to you after we're done here, probably tomorrow morning sometime. And again, I thank you. I love the questions. I love the questions you guys send me through email. And so thank you, and have a great day and the rest of your week.